Welcome, DoorGrow hackers, to the DoorGrow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you're interested in growing in business and life, and you're open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management business owners and their businesses. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. So my guest today is Ray Hespen, CEO of Property Meld. Ray, welcome back.
Hey, thanks so much, Jason. Super excited to come back. This is always a lot of fun, so appreciate the invite.
So just before we were in green room, and Ray was flirting with me and telling me how good I looked since we last met.
Just a little bit.
So.
Don't tell everybody my secret. How do I butter up things?
He's trying to puff me up, feed my ego before the show.
Well, I think the thing is I've been in the industry for about 7 years now, and so that means you start to realize, it's like I'm growing up here, and you're gonna see your peers that grow up in there, and so sometimes when you don't see them for a while, I'll be like, dang, you haven't aged as much as I have, so good on you, So.
I was like, yeah, my beard has gotten a lot whiter since you were last on the show.
I'm getting it.
So today's topic is going to be the importance of maintenance analytics in your property management business. And we're not going to run super long because I told Ray, unfortunately, I have to pick up my daughter from school, and that was just a timing thing. But so we'll make this potent. But I have to say, Ray, I was sitting on a call with a client, Jimmy Casolos, Jimmy K, I call him, James Casolos, and he was just saying how Property Meld has like seriously improved his business. This is what he said. And we probably can share the video with you. I'm sure he'd be cool with that. But he was like, yeah, I had 2 maintenance guys. We fired one of them, and then we got Property Meld, and then we didn't we realized we didn't need a second person anymore.
Oh my goodness.
So it's basically the gist of it. So
that's super cool. And I think the big thing about that, Jason, you and I are both in the business of trying to help other people deliver a better service. And sometimes what that translates to a lot of people is like, you made that job that much easier for somebody. It's like that hits, Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
We hear it. I told you in the green room, we hear it all the time from clients. Like they love Property Meld. Like they get on, we're like, go try out Property Meld. They do it. And then they become these like religious advocates, like missionaries for property, because every one of our coaching calls, they're like, somebody brings a maintenance. They're like, Property Meld. It's
that's
my
cool,
life.
Man.
So
gosh dang. See, like I told you looked really good and you aren't aging. Like you just returning the favor here. That's really nice. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, so let's talk about maintenance analytics. So what, one of the things I see is a lot of people, especially the 200 to 400 door plus crowd, they start to like freak out because they don't have a lot of profitability. A lot of times they were more profitable. They had more, let's say this, they had a higher percentage of profit margin when they were a solopreneur. Now they've got this team, they've got all these software, they've got all this stuff, and they're trying to figure out how do I become more profit focused. And then instead of solving all of the most significant things that would impact profit, they go and sign up for some sort of profit coaching system. And then they try and squeeze their team with more KPIs and more metrics and force more blood from the stone. When what I see a lot of times is they don't have a good team. They don't have good processes. They don't have good systems. They don't have good documentation. They have no planning system. So their team have no idea how to help and function and think more like the business owner and like get things done and innovate and create. And so these are all the things that we'll help them install. And early in that stage, but before any of that happens, maintenance is usually the thing we need to push them towards, because this is like baby steps. Like you need to get maintenance dialed in, and you need to get leasing dialed in. Now we can focus on the team, because those are things they need to get dialed in, maybe even before they start to build a team, when they're doing it themselves, around 50 to 200 doors, depending on how crazy they get.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the challenging things is oftentimes kind of like, both of us are business owners, and so oftentimes it's really hard to see what you need to fix next until you progress to that next stage and stuff breaks and you go, oh, obviously being able to know some of those challenges ahead is a superpower. But I even think the scaling element, right, depending on your market, type of class of property you're doing, for you as an entrepreneur, a property manager might be like scaling up, and maybe because they're the most amazing salesperson in the world, they're crushing it. Their problem might be sales in the future because they can't do it, right? Or that might be solved. They might have somebody else there, and they don't have a rock star coordinator that's doing it. So it's super hard in that. But I completely agree. I think making sure that you've got measurables to at least understand the health. What's red, yellow, and green? Not sitting there forcing and saying it's red, make it green. But just knowing that it's red, and then what are you as a business owner going to do? People, process, training to like address it.
Yeah, I love that. I call it the stoplight strategy. We just keep it super simple. We'll ask our clients on coaching calls. We'll just say, who's, red if you're in crisis or having problems, yellow if you're a little fuzzy and confused on what your next steps are, and green if you're in momentum, right? And people know right away. They're like, oh, I'm this color. And then we're like, why? Like, tell us why, and then we can help you out. So yeah, I like that. All right. So Ray, what sort of maintenance analytics should they be paying attention to? And how are people trying to do this if they're trying to do it without Property Meld?
Yeah. So, and I think I'll kind of talk about the high level just about it. And you talked about measurables and KPIs. I think a lot of the times, like, especially you talk about growth a lot of the times, understanding how many leads you're going to get, the quality of leads, your conversion rate, the onboarding success rate. Like a lot of those times, those are metrics that you sit there and go, how healthy is my process? Whereas a lot of the times, I think maintenance, the big challenge about maintenance is like that metric of how we measure ourselves is oftentimes like, how many angry phone calls do I get? How many negative reviews did I get? And those are really hard to manage because they're so lagging.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we're trying to and so one of the things that we're really trying to get the industry really bought in, and we've spent a lot of time trying to understand these, is like get more crystal about what are good lagging. Getting yelled at is not a good lagging indicator. A business owner may be shielded from getting yelled at, and so how are they supposed to know how maintenance is going? Resident sat is a big one, and that's probably the easiest one. There's some profitability stuff too, depending on making money on vendors or whatever, but resident sat's a great one. It's just a great one that everybody needs, because if you hang on to a renter, they renew the lease, the investor's happy, they stay with you longer, you keep making money, right? So it's a good one. But I think one of the things that can be difficult is like, how do I impact that? How do I make resident sat better? So now if I'm measuring it, and let's say it's a 4.1, and I want to move it to 4.4, and you say, team, I need you to move it to 4.4, they'd be like, great. Are we nicer to them? Do we, what do we do? Do we send gift baskets? And so I think that's been the big black box of maintenance, is how do you impact certain metrics? So I always give the analogy, say one of us is sitting there going, I'm really trying to tighten up my budget. I'm getting my credit card debt's too high, like as a human being, right? Take this out of business. I'm relating it to another example. And we sit there and be like, I need to get my credit card debt down. My spending's out of control against my income. Like we have a lagging indicator, which is our bank account, that tells us that. Now, if I were to sit there and do that, the tools that I'm available to as a consumer to understand what are the things that are breaking and what are the things that I'm spending all my money in, and what things do I have to move to ultimately move my outcome, my racking up of credit card debt, is actually really easy. You run your bank, you go to Mint. There's like tons of tools that will tell us, here's where you're spending all your money. And you can say, all right, I'm going to go fix that, right? So now if you take and get that to maintenance, I think that's the big challenge, is doing that. So we've started to really put together some of those metrics. And so one thing that we're super heavy geared up in is leading indicators. And then as business owners, what behaviors are you expecting out of your team to drive those? So I'll give some leading indicators, just some really quick and easy ones that I think are really easy. Speed of repair, probably one of the best ones. Track your speed of repair religiously. Bonus points if you can track it by the stage. How long to assign? How long to schedule? How long to complete? How long to get the invoice? All those things, right? Track that. That's a great leading indicator. And then as you can monitor with the team, that's when you can start to think about, as your organization, what sort of behaviors are your team members doing to impact that? We always respond to incoming maintenance requests during the daytime within 15 minutes. We're always assigning that. We're always troubleshooting. You know what I mean? So it's really about connecting those dots to lagging. And that's where a lot of the data and information has been missing. And most people, one, won't even be able to tell your ResSat lagging indicator. Two, much less, what are the contributing elements to that?
You know, that's interesting because in most areas of business, there's a lot of myths and ideas around what creates a good experience or what actually creates retention or what creates things. And then the data says often it's not even true. So for example, one of the, when it comes to client retention or client success or decreasing churn for SaaS or for coaching or for any business, the big mistake most people think is if they're happy, they'll stay a customer. And that's not true. Like we've all had happy customers leave. They're like, oh yeah, I love it. You guys are the best. And, and we're going to go do something else. Right. And it's also not, so it's not related to whether or not they're happy or sad in relation to you. For example, for client success, it's just related to whether or not they see a future involving you. It's really it. They could be miserable, but still see in the future that they want to be working with you or that they need you or that they're working with you or whatever. And they will still stay a customer and some people are just always miserable, right? So, sometimes things like NPS are not super valid, right? Net promoter score, sometimes because you're like, okay, well, if they're not a true promoter, they must by default be a true detractor. But that's not always true. Just because they don't love you doesn't mean they're going to go shout from the rooftops. Nobody should work with you.
That is so true. And one of the things that we've been really disciplined in studying, because we've got around 450,000 units on our platform. We process around 1.7 million service issues, and we collect an immense amount of data and information that we've been trying to study some of these behaviors. So I'll give a couple of them because I think this is really good. And Jason, we actually studied on service issues. We started to map all sorts of behaviors because Property Meld is an amazing communication tool as well. How much communication happened, speed of communication, all these sort of things. Like we can't measure how good your bedside manner is in communication yet, right. but we would sit there and map that across. We'd map across kind of responsiveness. We would map all that sort of stuff. We actually saw no correlation to resident sat and communication, as odd as it is. Now, we know that it does in ways way more nuanced. It's not just, did you do the thing? It's how you do the thing, clearly, because it's not as quantitative. But the thing we definitely did learn is ultimately that speed of repair was the #1 largest correlation to resident satisfaction. #1, by far. You can even in Property Meld, I think I released some of these stats and data on our LinkedIn and stuff like that around, you got 3 days for an HVAC, you got 4.5 days for plumbing, you got 5 days for an electrical before people start getting really cheesed off and you lose your chance of getting a 5-star. But we've also discovered the same thing in investors. You mentioned, are they happy, right? Like, what's my CSAT score? It's customer satisfaction score. And what we ended up realizing, because we have around, when we did the study, we had around 190,000 investor owners on the platform. Most of our customer service, the accidental landlord segment, some institutional as well. But the #1 correlation we could find there, Jason, out of everything, there's some interesting stuff there. We could dive into it more. But the #1 is how much in maintenance costs are they spending annually against rent roll? Keep it under 12%. That's the magic. And, so that means you're trying to keep turnovers down. That means you're trying to be competitive with money. That means if you got technicians are doing enough jobs per day that you're not getting, roached on it. But the biggest correlation is keeping their costs down. Exponentially increases the chance of risk if you get above 12%. And these are people that are not crunching a calculator and doing NOI calcs every month. there's a gut feel where once 12% happens, and they say, hey, I like you, property management X. You're really great, but this doesn't seem like I'm getting a lot of money back. I'm going to go look for other options, right? So,
yeah, that's interesting. And so there's, because there's kind of this trend of nickel and dime fee, like fee maximization, fee. And when people, there's a point in which anything that can be done too little can also be done in excess. It can be done too much, right? And so it's interesting that, related to data, and it suggests that you can go too far and then it's going to start hurting you.
Yeah, and I'll even tell you one of the things, and I don't know if your viewers are super interested. We started actually kicking out this thing. Like, are you familiar with like Maslow's ladder of hierarchy
Of needs? Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody joked one time, and I took it to heart because I thought it was actually quite brilliant. They said, is there one of those for maintenance? Kind of seems like there is. If you think about Maslow's ladder, it's right. You got food and water, and there's a measurable there if you want to keep.
So for yours, it'd be speed first. Like, just get the problem off my freaking plate. Like, get it done.
Well, I'll break through it a little bit. If you want to check it out, you can download the image on our website. We're pretty proud of it, and it's not Property Meld applicable. It's anywhere applicable.
Okay.
But it's the concept like in Maslow's ladder, right? You got water and food, right? If you don't have water and food, you're going to die, and you need to go to the next thing. And then what happens is, then once you go to water and food, then you go up the next one, and that's shelter, security, all that. Then once you go up that, it's like recognition. Then once you go back, it's purpose. And I'm probably butchering Maslow's ladder, but the concept is, as human beings, we have to get the previous need met before we move to the next need. And so we actually started building this for maintenance. We call it a ladder of maintenance excellence. And really it starts down at communication. Communication is critical. You can't do anything else without getting good communication. But once you get communication mastered, that's when you start to get to scheduling efficiency. And we have metrics and stuff of how to do it. Then once you get to scheduling efficiency, then you can get to staffing efficiency, because you know how many vendors you need, how many technicians you need, how many coordinators you need. Then once you do that, you can start doing really cool stuff of really driving preventative repairs. And it goes through all the way to the top, which is, basically creating predictable NOI for investors. And it connects how all that marries together. But the reason I say that is, along the way, it's how do you know you're ready to move to the next? And that's really hard. Where are you at in the ladder? If you're thinking you're up here and you're down here, it's like, go down here and fix this, then build back, right?
Yeah.
So anyways.
There's a similar pyramid, and I'm trying to remember the name of the books. I think I'm doing a quick Google search here, but I think so there's this pyramid, and it's called the customer satisfaction pyramid. And it's from a book, called First Break All the Rules, from the Gallup organization that does the Gallup polls. And it was a bunch of research they'd done, on businesses. And when it comes to customer satisfaction in the pyramid, they had these 4 levels, and the lowest level was availability. It was like, just answer your freaking phone. Or I usually use the waiter analogy. Like, if the waiter's at a restaurant and he's never available, you're going to be pretty upset. The second level is accuracy. Does the waiter bring you the right food? And if the waiter does those 2 things perfectly, if a business does availability and accuracy perfectly, you don't even notice they exist.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like, oh my gosh, the waiter actually brought me my food and actually came up and asked me what I wanted and checked in and refilled my water. You don't notice them. You're enjoying your guests or whoever you're with or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now, the next level is where people start to pay attention, and most businesses are failing at availability and accuracy. The availability is low. They don't have Property Meld. They're not answering their freaking phones. Nobody can reach them. Like, you'd be surprised. A lot of property managers, you wouldn't be surprised, but some might be surprised. A lot of property managers don't even answer their phones, right? They get a lead and they follow up with it like a day or 2 later, right?
Yeah.
So after availability and accuracy, there's partnership. This is like, hey, I'm in this with you. Like, we actually have a desire to help, and we're going to work with you to make this happen, this partnership. And the next level beyond that in customer satisfaction, where it's beyond partnership, is the advice category. Now you're an advisor. Now they trust you as being somebody in a superior position of knowledge or information where they're going to, you know, acquiesce their own will to you in some instances. And so for property managers, partnership's good, but if they don't perceive you as being an expert or knowing more than them, then they're going to micromanage you at times. They're going to be a difficult client. And so that highest tier is advice, where you can now give them advice and you're educating them and they know that you know more than them about some of this stuff. And so, but if you do the first two, 100%, you're 100% available, 100% accurate, your clients won't even notice that you exist. They'll just not get angry.
Do you know, I think what's so great that you said, and I think it marries up so well, we focus on those next steps without coming down and going, I got to get some foundational pieces right. And it just keeps toppling over and breaking. So that ladder, Molly posted where that ladder is. If you want to check it, you got to just scroll down the page a little bit. But like the big thing is, there's a lot of people who sit there and go, we're going to get staffing efficiency like nailed down. We're going to get it. Here's how we're going to get it. But like what's happening is you can break down on communication. The way that you can tell is if you look on the left side of that letter, happy residents tell you if you need to go down the ladder or up, right? They're kind of like your limiting force, right? And there's a point where they quit to matter. It starts to matter to the investor. And so kind of like your analogy is like a lot of people will start up a bit higher probably when they should. And it's like, you got to go to those first two, because if not, if you're not available and you're not accurate, there's no way that you can be a partner.
It doesn't matter.
Try. Yeah.
I mean, let's imagine the waiter, right? You have this waiter and they come over and they're like super charming and they're charismatic and they're like, you feel like there's partnership. They're giving you great advice on what to eat, but they never show up to give you your fucking drink. And they don't you don't have silverware yet. And they bring you the wrong food. This isn't right. It puts you're in so much discomfort in having to relate now to another human being to express they didn't do it right. You're frustrated. And so, yeah, it's absolutely true. Like most businesses, if they just did what was expected, most people say they don't. I think most of the research indicates people don't really want their expectations exceeded. They don't want their mind blown. They just want them actually met. That's it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll even kind of marry back to the analytics and insights part that you were kind of walking through. Like you've got some measurables probably in the customer service thing that you can probably measure today and know and say, hey, my response time, like awareness, accuracy, there's ways that somehow that you probably do that. Partnership like is potentially, you have a measurement or whatever that you can do there. Is that good? And like, how much are you an advisor to people? Like, are you consulting on how many houses they should buy or whatever? Like there's ways that you measure it, but I think that's the big gap for a lot of people, particularly in maintenance. If you look at that maintenance ladder, it's like, how do I know where I'm even at? Which area should I be starting at and working on? And that's one of the big challenges about insights. And we've got a really amazing product that's dropping in the middle of this year. I think it'll be industry shifting, but it's actually providing the visibility to where you're at on the ladder and what you should be working on. Not just you, not just company X, and be like, how do I think I'm doing in my own little paradigm? But like, where am I at against my competitors? Really important to know. Because at the end of the day, like that investor that's coming in and looking, that resident is chances are has the asset, and your only competition is not your own picture of yourself or what do you think it should be. It's about the PM down the road. It's about the institutional partner. Oh, go ahead.
So let me make sure I understand this. So you have a tool coming out, and this is going to help people understand how they compare basically to other companies or maybe best practices in relation to data when it comes to maintenance coordination.
You got it.
So this is the instant analogy I saw in my head. Do you remember in video games, do you ever play a race car video game as a kid?
Yeah.
You play this race car video game
at the end.
And then like you do it the next time and you're racing against the ghost car. It's either yourself in a previous race and you're trying to beat that time, or it's that ghost person that was some other player that you need to try and beat. So that's the ghost car. Having that data, you can see that other thing and you now have contrast. I'm behind, I'm ahead.
100%. And I think one of the things that's so difficult, Jason, is like the fact that people don't know if they're working on the right thing or the wrong thing. They make an assumption because one customer gets mad at them and says, you're spending too much on HVAC costs, right? It's happening. HVAC invoices are up 43% year over year,
Yeah.
and it's like, hey, and so the reality is everybody's natural instinct is, oh my goodness, that means my costs are high.
Yeah.
When in the reality, their costs could be actually below market and they're trying to beat the crap out of their vendor to get costs down. And if they don't know if that's actually broken or not, they could be working on the wrong thing.
Oh, that's so
And
good.
yeah, and so I think that's one of the biggest challenges a lot of people have. The idea is it's not like, oh, how's it against me and my competitor? It's what parts of my business are we excelling at and what parts are we not?
Yeah,
And we need to know that so we
you-
can actually go point at it.
This is brilliant because if the owner is pushing back on something and the property manager doesn't know, they don't have definitive data to know that this could be an issue or is not supposed to be an issue and is not, they then won't have the confidence to go to that owner and say, this is not an issue. It's completely in range. We have access to hundreds of companies' data. We know where we're at, and we're actually a little ahead of the curve. So this is good. That gives them the confidence to go back to the owner and instill more confidence so the owner doesn't like quit or feel like they're being taken advantage of and then go down the street to another company where they get like, railroaded even worse.
Worse. Exactly. There was one example, and I'll just give this super quick here, is we had a customer that had an institutional client. They were getting beat up on price. And I asked the question, I said, where do you think they're getting their information from? I have no idea. And they're like, it's like this. And I'm like, we have more data and information about invoice costs of different kinds of things. Like, how do we not? And that was actually part of the thing that spawned it was exactly that. Most property managers, some of them don't even own a home. How are they supposed to know how much a hot water heater costs? How are they supposed to know when an investor calls them and screams at them what it should be? They don't know. So the only way that you can, just like you said, is enrich them with data to feel confident to go back and say, we're actually doing better. Or if it is bad, it gives an investor or the owner of the business a good idea to say, hey, we actually do need to work on this. Maybe we need to look at our pricing structures or our network or whatever. So
this is powerful because also for a property manager to go out and just try and get that anecdotally, that would be viewed as collusion. That would be a dangerous thing. So now they're talking to other property managers like, hey, what are you charging? And what's going on with this? And so that's dangerous ground. And so the reverse, this is after the fact, and this is data. This is based on reality. And so you're just reporting on here's reality, but you're making it visible.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
Collusion, but it's helpful.
Absolutely.
It's good. Good stuff, man. Okay. Well, I got to wrap up, but this is really awesome.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.
More. But yeah, everybody check out Property Meld. We still have that old link up. If you go to doorgrow.com/maintenance, you guys still get these? We send people to
I'll have to ask marketing. I'm sure we
will. If you go to doorgrow.com/maintenance, fill out that form. And it's like a quiz to see if you could benefit from maintenance automation, which the answer is yes. Spoiler alert. Yeah, if you fill that out, it will send your information over to them and they'll get connected to you. And I believe it says there's some sort of discount. So
awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks so much, Jason. And I really appreciate it. Great way to go check it out. And if you want to look at that ladder, it's posted in there so you can see that. It's a lot of cool stuff there. So thanks for having me on. Always enjoy it. Thanks for inviting me, man.
All right. Thanks for being here. Cool. So if you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, like we talked about in the podcast intro, or the more important problem, you now are adding doors. You've got plenty of doors. Maybe you've got 200 to 400 or higher, but you know deep down that adding more doors is just going to create more friction in your life. It's going to create more pain for you as a CEO. You're not going to enjoy your business more. Even though you're going to make more money, you know it's going to mean less fulfillment in your day-to-day of enjoyment, less freedom, less of a sense of contribution and making a difference in the world. It's just going to burn you out and you're going to feel less supported because you're just going to have more people needing things from you and wondering, why won't my team think for themselves? Then you need to get into and check out our DoorGrow super system. This is where we help you get an operations person in place. We help you build out your hiring system. We help you get really good process software in place. We help you get really good planning software in place. This is where you now are able to get more fulfillment, more freedom, more of a sense of contribution, making a difference in the world, and more support in your business the bigger you get. That's the right way to build your business. It actually should be getting better and better and better the more doors and more money you add, because you have more resources if you're doing it the right way. And we want to help you make sure you're doing it the right way, because that's not the default. I've seen inside thousands of property management companies, it's not the norm, and it's the norm for our clients. And we want to help you get that. So reach out to us, check us out at doorgrow.com, and make sure you join our free community, our Facebook group. We'll give you free stuff. It's really cool. Go to doorgrowclub.com, join our Facebook group, and you can learn more about us there. Bye, everyone.